Hi there, and welcome back to the Ingrain Workshop. I'm Rick. I'd like to take a moment and thank all the new subscribers to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoy DIY projects, then hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be trimming out the electrical on the north and east walls of the workshop. The significance of that is that that's going to complete the renovation work on those two walls. Once I get the electrical trimmed out, I should be able then to move all my existing shop furniture back in place and pretty much complete half the workshop, which is going to be a great accomplishment. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start here at the east wall. I've only got 3 double duplex outlets to install. I'm going to be installing them at 48 inches above the finished floor. That way in the future, if I want to put in base cabinets or wall cabinets, the outlets won't be interfered by the installation of the cabinets. I think 48 inches above the finished floor is a good height for them, and we're going to get started. Okay, I'm going to start with the vertical conduit. I've already pre-bent this, but I will show you how to bend it in, later on in the video. And now I'm just taking an outlet box and I'm going to knock out a one of the half-inch holes in the top of the box. And again, I'm just going to take my needle nose Kleins and just knock out the half-inch knockout, and then that will allow me to put in a slip fitting. Which you'll see here, slip fitting has a lock nut on one side, and then it's got a slip joint with a set screw on the other side, and you just unscrew the lock nut and put it on the box, and then screw the lock nut from the inside of the box, and then that secures it to the box. And then you can connect the conduit, which you'll see next. I'll take and connect the vertical conduit to the top of the box with the set screw. Make sure everything's plumb, and then I'll start with the other outlets. Now here I just cut a piece of conduit with EMT with my Sawzall, and you'll see that there's a lot of burrs at the end of the pipe, so you want to make sure you take your needle nose and ream out the inside of the conduit along with the outside of the conduit. You don't want any burrs in your pipe that could potentially cut your insulation and just cause issues. So it's always better to just take and clean up all the burrs and make it smooth so you don't cut the insulation in your Romex. Okay, so now to install this half-inch conduit between the two outlet boxes. You can see on the end of the outlet box that it does not sit flush with the back of the box. There's a 3/8 inch offset to get the pipe into the box, so the conduit can be mounted flush to the wall. So what I'm going to have to do here is take and bend a 3/8 inch offset on both ends of this piece of conduit. So let me show you how to do that. So because you can't start your bend right at the end of the pipe, because if you do that, you're going to deform the end of the pipe, and it's no longer going to be round. You're going to make it oval shaped, and then it won't fit into the slip fitting. So what we're going to have to do before we make our first bend is to measure back, and for a rule of thumb, I always like to measure back 2 inches. So let's make our first measurement at 2 inches, and we're going to do the same on both ends. So you can see I make the mark all the way around the pipe. Now I'm using a black Sharpie only because I'm painting my conduit black. If you're not doing that, I would advise using a pencil. That way you can come back and clean off all your pencil marks, and then you've just got a nice piece of galvanized EMT. But if you're going to be painting it black like I'm doing here, it really doesn't matter, so I'm just go ahead and making all my marks with a permanent marker. So now we have to make our second mark. So because these offsets are not going to be that large, the obstruction, which is the height at which we're trying to bend around, in this case is 3/8 of an inch. That's the distance from the back of the box to the hole that's in the box where the conduit needs to come into. So then with our Klein bender, we know that since we're only our obstruction is only 3/8 of an inch thick, then we only need to make probably a 10-degree bend. I'm not going to make anything greater than that. So this is going to be a 10-degree bend, and it says right here on our bender that our multiplier is going to be 6. So what we do is we have to take 3/8 of an inch times 6 inches, and whatever that dimension is, that's the dimension we need to measure from our 2-inch dimension. So in this case, 3/8 of an inch times our multiplier of 6 is 2 1/4 inches. So now I need to measure 2 1/4 inches from our 2-inch measurement. So what I did is I just measured 4 1/4 inches from the end of the pipe, which gives me 2 1/4 inches from my first 2-inch mark. And now I'm making my second mark on both ends of the conduit. So now, I don't know if you can see that, but I have 2 marks, one at 2 inches, and then one at 2 1/4 inches or 4 1/4 inches from the very end. So we're going to make our first bend at the first mark and then our second bend at the second mark. So let me show you how to make the bend. So I'm going to be using a Klein pipe bender, and I'll link I'll put a link in the description to where to get it. I think it was like $39. It was pretty reasonable. Again, this is the first time I've bent pipe, so I'm definitely not an expert, but it's not that difficult to learn how. So on the pipe bender, you'll see that there is an arrow right here. This arrow is where we're gonna, this is your reference point of where you start to make your bends. So we're gonna slide the pipe in and put our first mark, our 2-inch mark, right here at this arrow. And then you can see on the side of the pipe bender, there are degrees. So we're gonna use the 10-degree angle. So once we get the location in the bender, then we're gonna bend it to the 10 degrees. And I believe there's 10, 22 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees. I don't know if this is being picked up, but the mark here is in line with my mark on the conduit. So now I've got my first mark lined up with the mark on the pipe bender, and now I can take and bend, and again I'm going to bend it to 10 degrees. Now the good thing about the Kleins is it actually has an angle setter inside the pipe bender. Let me show you that. So the angle setter doesn't allow you to overbend the pipe. You actually bend it till you hit the angle setter, and then that's as far as you bend it. So let me go ahead and get this set up and we'll get it bent. Okay, so when you bend it, you might have a little bounce back, so you might want to just bend it just a little bit more. to account for that. So you can see now that the pipe is bent starting at the first mark, and it's bent 10 degrees. So it's flush with the angle setter, so I can't bend it any further. So now what we're going to do is we have our second mark, which is right here. So now we're going to have to move the conduit down the pipe bender until the second mark is lined up with our bending arrow. And we're also going to take and rotate the pipe 180 degrees. And this is very important. You've got to make sure you rotate the pipe 180 degrees. And then you set it on the second mark. And you can actually sight down the conduit, and you should sight down the conduit, because you don't want to put a dog leg in your bend. You want your bends to be lined up exactly. So we're bending in one direction, turning it 180 degrees, and then we're going to bend it in the opposite direction. So you have to make sure that the pipe is turned exactly 180 degrees, otherwise you're going to have a dog leg in your bend. All right, so now I've got it lined up. The second mark is lined up. It's at 180 degrees, and I'm going to make my second bend. Okay, so now you can see this is the 3/8 inch offset that we're going to need. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other end of the pipe. Now I've rotated it 180 degrees. I've put it on the second mark. And now we're going to make our last bend. So now you can see the offset bend in the pipe, and it's the same thing on both sides. So now when we put this on the wall, the pipe itself will be flush to the wall, but our ends stick out 3/8 of an inch. Both ends now stick out 3/8 of an inch to feed into the box. So let me get this painted, and then we'll get it installed. That completes the trim out of the electrical on the east wall. I installed the vertical conduit from the ceiling and then connected that to the 3 double duplex outlets along the wall on the east side. Okay, so I've got the east wall 100% complete. And, you know, just the smallest victories in a workshop rehab are the most gratifying, knowing that the east wall is now 100% complete. I was able to move my floor mounted drill press back up against the wall along with my bandsaw. The wood rack is 100% complete. That was in a previous video. So, you know, the whole east wall is done. There's nothing left for me to do to it. So that's just a great feeling. I'm going to continue wiring up the north wall. And so let's get started on that.
That completes the electrical trim out by the miter station, I believe in the northeast corner of the workshop. I do have a receptacle tester that I plugged in once I got the power hooked up to the electrical panel. I believe there's 2 yellow lights that come on when it's wired correctly. If you've got your neutral switched or your hot leg switched, you'll get a red light or a different type of light sequence will come up. But if you've got just 2 yellow lights, that means that the polarity, everything's wired correctly. And it's always good just to go back and check. So now you can see the northeast corner of the workshop with everything kind of moved back in place. It's starting to come together. It's starting to get complete, and it looks great, and I'm very excited.
Well, here we have it, another small little victory for the ingrain workshop. I guess it'd be the northeast corner of the workshop is complete. I had mentioned earlier that the east wall was 100% done, and I went ahead and put back my bandsaw, my Powermatic bandsaw, my floor-mounted drill press. I finished up the east side of the north wall, so now I was able to push back my circa 2000 miter station and get it back in, get everything plugged in, my Delta planer, everything is pretty much back to where it's going to be. Now granted, I'm going to have other projects. I want to be upgrading my miter saw station and just other little projects like that down the road. But for right now, just being able to get everything put back to its original spot before the renovation is a huge accomplishment. I'm very pleased with how it's turning out, how it came out so far. I hope you guys are too that have been following along. And so I'm going to continue on just roughing out or trimming out the electrical and slowly moving things back into place.
You'll notice here I use a razor blade just at the tip of the Romex just to score the insulation, and then I use my Kleins to peel it back and cut it off. Then I use two fists to measure the distance of the conductors that I need, and then I cut off the excess. Here you'll see me taking the Kleins and just scoring the insulation about an inch apart, and then I'm coming back with a straight razor and then peeling it back. I'm doing it this way so I can wire both outlets with just one piece of Romex without taking a wire nut and using 2 pigtails. You can see here I'm taking the black hot, and where I scored the insulation back an inch, I'm using that to tie to the first outlet. Same thing here on my neutral. You can see the 1-inch bare copper, and then I use that on the neutral leg of the first outlet. On the ground, of course, there's no insulation. I have to peel back here. And then I've got enough conductors left to reach the second outlet. And this just saves time, I think, when you're wiring it. I don't know whether or not it's the code or not, but, you know, it beats having to use a wire nut and can come off a wire nut with 2 pigtails to wire up these 2 outlets. And, it made the work go a lot quicker wiring it up this way, and I think this is a cleaner way to wire it up, and there's less congestion in your outlet box with a bunch of wire nuts and pigtails, and you're able to close up everything real neat and nice. You'll see here the 2 outlets with the cover fits perfect, and then I'm able to take and push the cover back and fasten that to the outlet box with no issues, because you don't have that much wire or that many wire nuts in the box, and it fits good. And that pretty much completes the wiring of our traditional 110 outlet. This is a 220 outlet for my dust collector. You'll notice here I've got 3 wire and a ground. I've got a black, which is 1 hot leg, and then I've got a red, which comes off the second hot leg or the second phase. I've also got a neutral here. The neutral is tied into the neutral in the panel, but there's really no neutral to tie into the outlet. So I'm just going to cap it off with a wire nut. But like I said, this is a special 220 outlet, which I wanted to show you how that was wired. And again, this is for the dust collection system. But other than that, that was the only special outlet that I had to wire up.
So as you probably just saw in the video, I just finished up wiring a 220 volt receptacle. And at the time, I was just filming because I knew that that was something that's different than just, installing 110 volt outlets. And it really didn't register to me or hit me that that pretty much winds up the trim out on the north wall. Now, the supervisor's always telling me that I'm not emotional. Well, I got very emotional because it wasn't until afterwards that I started moving back all the equipment, the belt sanders, my router table. I noticed that, oh, there's my dust collector. And that was a very emotional time for me. I have not had a dust collector for 2 months during this rehab, this shop rehab. So it was, a very emotional time for me to be able to hook up my dust collector, even though it was only to the planer and the table saw. Not having a dust collector for 2 months is definitely something you don't want to have to go through. And to be able to finally get it installed and get it hooked up, I mean, I was crying in the workshop. Unfortunately, the supervisor wasn't around to see it. Is that like if a tree falls in the forest? Does it make a sound? I don't know. But it was very emotional for me because not only did it allow me to be able to hook up some of the dust collection, it also pretty much finished half the workshop. So let me show you what the finished product looks like for at least half the workshop. So starting on the east wall, I've got my bandsaw. It's now moved in place and it's plugged in. Fully operational. Next to that, I have the my floor-mounted drill press. Again, it's plugged in and fully operational. And then here in the what would be the northeast corner of the workshop, I've got my miter station. Now, I don't have the dust collection hooked up to the miter saw, but that's just a a small issue. But again, this is a miter station that was built circa 2000 and will be replaced in an upcoming project. And then I've got right in front of the window that I installed, I've got my dust collector, and as you can see, I've got a pipe from the floor. My dust collection for my table saw and my planer all are under the slab, so it was very easy for me to just go ahead and reconnect those without having to do much work. So the dust collector is installed. And then I've got my router table, and again, it's plugged in, ready to go. And then I've got 3 belt sanders over there in the corner. Actually, I've got an extra belt sander. But, it's such a gratifying experience to finally, after, I think I've been renovating now for 3 months, to be able to at least look at this half of the workshop and see that for the most part, it's complete. And then the creme de la creme is a functional dust collection system. So this is going to wrap up the video on trimming out the electrical on the east and north wall. I still have to trim out the electrical on the south wall and finish up that half of the workshop. I hope this video has been useful for you. I hope it helps you out in your projects. Get out there and create, build, and inspire, and as always, pay it forward. If you're new to the channel and you like DIY projects, then hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. And as always, I'm very grateful to all the new subscribers. And this is Rick from the Ingrain Workshop signing out. I'll see you guys next week, and thanks for watching.